welcome to another episode of Gov Tech Today, where we aim to bridge .com and .gov. I'm here today and I'm super excited. We have the NSA on the line. So everyone make sure everything is square and above board. But the NSA is working on some incredible stuff that I can't wait to dive into with Bailey Bickley. Bailey is the chief of DIB, that's Defense Industrial Base Defense at NSA Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. Hey, Bailey, welcome.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me.
And not only do we have Bailey, but we have an incredible one-two punch here today. We have Snehal Antani. Snehal is the CEO and co-founder of Horizon 3 AI. When I think of Horizon 3, I think of automated pen testing, which is super exciting and cool. And there's so much more. So Snehal, thanks so much for joining us.
Amazing to be here.
So these guys are working on something really cool together. Before we dive into that, I want them to dive into what each of them are working on independently, and then we'll sort of dive into how you guys are sort of changing the landscape of pen testing and cybersecurity in working through a partnership here. So, Bailey, why don't you kick us off? What are you working on that would be of interest to our .com and .gov sort of listeners out there?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So, at the NSA Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, we're focused on a couple different things, but predominantly, NSA, our unique value add is the insights we have on nation state cyber actors that we're getting through our signals intelligence mission. That's something we have that no one else has due to our unique authorities in that space. And so, what we've done within the CCC is we're really focused on getting those insights and trying to rapidly sanitize them. And in our government speak, that means getting them down to the unclassified level so that we can share them with the private sector. And the reason why is because A, the private sector is operating the majority of the critical infrastructure we all rely upon. B, they're making the products and the services and the technology that the DoD is relying upon and, broader than the DoD, the US government, individual users, et cetera. And so we know that we can have a defensive impact. We can make those products and capabilities stronger when we share what we know. We can also have an impact on our adversaries' cyber operations. So that's the first piece of what we're working on is having that threat intelligence sharing and conversely, when industry wants to, getting insights from them because they are also on the front lines. This isn't just government anymore. Industry is seeing things, their networks are getting targeted, their customers are being targeted. And so we want to accept insights from them, whether it's malware samples, logs, whatever they're willing to voluntarily share, so we can have a more fulsome and comprehensive understanding of what nation state actors are doing in cyber. So that's the first thing that I think is really relevant to .com, as you call it. The second thing, that kind of applies to large, really capable companies that have robust cybersecurity teams. But there's also within the defense industrial base, 80% of the DIB is small businesses. And these are companies that are mom and pop shops that are really good at making the things we need them to make, but they don't necessarily always have the expertise to defend against a nation state actor. And so for those companies, what we've done is we've worked with industry to give them capabilities that are enriched with our unique insights, but that are scalable, kind of set it and forget it, and really help them assess their network security and, far more importantly, improve their network security. And so that's the type of thing that we do in partnership with companies like Horizon 3. We work with 1,700 companies, so we have a lot of voluntary partnerships, contracts, et cetera, where we're just trying to use commercial technology to scale defense.
So hold up here. You're telling me government gives something to industry for free.
Yeah.
I love this. This is like the epitome of a public-private partnership. Usually it's the other way around, right? Government's like, we're government. We can't support you guys. We need you to support us. So, I mean, kudos. How incredible. And you're right. Not only the majority of the DIB is small businesses, but the majority of businesses in the United States, period, are those small businesses. And you're right, the sophistication to combat these cybersecurity threats just isn't there. So I mean, kudos. This is so incredible and probably something that a lot of vendors aren't even aware of. That's sort of a function of government. I love highlighting it and I want to sing it from the rooftops. So, Snehal, tell me a little bit first about what you guys are working on at Horizon 3 and sort of how this has sort of woven its way into what Bailey and the NSA are working on.
Sure thing. Let's start with the problem. When I was a CIO, I had no idea I was secure until the bad guys showed up. Are we fixing the right vulnerabilities? Are we logging the right data in our SIM? Is our EDR actually working correctly? And the answer is I don't know. It probably works well. I think I've checked all the right boxes in the configurations and so on, but you don't really know until you've actually stressed yourself. And you can either wait to get hacked, you could hire a consultant to show up once a year to test a small section of your environment. You could try to build your own internal pen testing team, which is really hard to do. It's hard to find talent and so on. Um, or you need a force multiplier. And that's really what we set off to solve with Horizon 3 when we started it, which was how do we enable customers to have a pen test Wednesday for every patch Tuesday? Every time they make a change to their network, they should be able to run a hack. And our t-shirts literally say, go hack yourself. And the whole point is you should be able to look at your environment through the eyes of the attacker, understand how you're exploitable so you can fix problems that actually matter. So we pioneer the use of autonomous systems. So this blend of AI, machine learning, automation, kind of the collection of those different types of techniques to run infrastructure pen testing at scale. So that's kind of the start of the company. My passion for the mission and for the government, though, came from leaving industry in 17 to go serve within the US Special Operations community. And I was the first chief technology officer for a component within US Special Operations called JSOC. And, when you look at the mission, you look at the problems that you've got to go solve, and then you think about the long tail of suppliers key to those capabilities being put in the hands of the warfighter, you realize that, yes, it's a national security problem, it's an economic problem, it's a regional problem. I mean, it is the epitome of a problem that transcends public and private worlds. That's why we were able to find each other between Bailey and myself. I think a member of the NSA DIB heard me speak at Black Hat a couple years ago, and then just through follow up conversations and mutual appreciation for the problem, we ended up on this podcast together now 2 years later. And so I think it just comes down to passion for the mission, the reality that the long tail of businesses is a national security imperative. Whether we recognize that in other circles or not is a different discussion, but it is truly critical to ensuring our warfighters have the right capabilities.
And I would just add on to that, I think one thing that's really interesting is, you have experience being a CISO and a CIO, and you have experience in government and industry, but a lot of times companies don't think that they're a target for nation state actors. They are so focused on their unique service or their unique manufacturing. They don't think that their product is of an intelligence value. And so that's one of the things that NSA is really passionate about is trying to educate these suppliers to say, when you have a nation state actor that has the resources and backing of a nation state, they can go broad and wide, and you are in fact a target. And so I think that's what's so key is, you said, I think I'm secure. I think I'm doing all the right things, but I don't really know until someone shows up in my system. And so also it's important for us to communicate to companies, you need to actually be looking because they could already be there.
So, something we talk a lot about on the podcast here is just the speed of adoption and how it seems to be a little slower in government. Something that we've sort of observed is how AI is sort of tipping that on its head, right? Our adversaries are using AI to attack us. And so we, as a government, although usually government is a little behind the times, right? Like I was still carrying a Blackberry as a government employee, everyone else had iPhones. So tell me a little bit because it sounds like Bailey, you're like, "Get out of here with that." Like, "Nope, we can't afford that. We can't it's a national security issue at this point." Tell me a little bit about how you have sort of flipped the mindset, within your DIB community and how players like Snehal and Horizon 3 are helping to sort of flatten out that adoption curve.
Well, I think when it comes to AI, and then I'll throw it to you, Snehal, there's two things that are important. First, we, meaning the intelligence community, NSA, have to work with companies that are making these models to make sure that we're sharing threats to those models with the companies that are building them. When we know something, we need to share that immediately and not sit on it so the models are secure. Because like you said, there's obviously plenty of bad actors who are targeting those or even not even trying to use them for nefarious purposes maybe, but just simply trying to steal our technology and our R&D. So that's the first thing. But I think the second thing when it comes to technology is just working with and contracting with companies that have adopted AI into their commercial products, making sure that's secure and then using that. We don't want to recreate the wheel. We wanna use what's there and used AI first and faster and for defense, and I think that's where we get the advantage. The final thing I would say, I have to give all of my colleagues in government just an incredible kudos. I think the government certainly has a reputation that's perhaps been earned over decades, but I think in this space right now, people are moving fast. There's, an acceptable amount of risk being accepted, and people are doing a really great job at leaning forward in this space and empowering missions to adopt AI quickly.
Snehal, what are your thoughts there on
Yeah,
leveling that
it's a good
out?
it's a good question. So, I was in industry. I was the CTO of Splunk when I decided to leave and join government for 4 years. And there are aspects of government that are certainly laggards in adoption. But for those closest to the mission, they tend to be first movers in a lot of areas. And so I generally gravitated towards the mission anyways. And so I was very lucky to have to be surrounded by people that were genuinely first movers in autonomous systems, in drones, drone swarms, unmanned ground vehicles, tactical edge computing, transfer learning of models from the cloud to the edge. I mean, we pioneered a lot of stuff in the mission, a lot of capabilities. Even the complexity of having quadcopters in the same airspace as little birds and Blackhawks. I mean, there's a lot of risk where these quadcopters and little birds could crash into each other. You had to deconflict them. So I think that when it comes to the mission, there is no doubt that we have incredibly talented men and women in uniform and in civilians and contractors that are first movers. Absolutely. Sometimes when it comes to like the man, train, and equip side, things like payroll or travel or reimbursements tend to be laggards. Oftentimes because the mission has consumed the bulk of the calories, rightfully so. But with that, I think what's amazing is if you look at the whole of government focus on cybersecurity, between the NSA and the Triple C with Bailey and the broader team, with CISA and what they've done with critical infrastructure, what we've seen with DoD and pushing CMMC as an example, and then the White House cybersecurity policy, rarely do we see multiple entities like that across the government aligned and working together for one common outcome. And so I think for the first time I've ever seen, maybe the space race was before my time, but you can read about the space race as one of the unique moments in American history where the entire government was mobilized together to solve a problem. And I think we see similar inklings of that with cybersecurity now, at least in the different agencies and the cohesion across them from policy, resourcing, and execution.
I think you're right. I think it's definitely there at the federal level. And I think where we are today, and for instance, where I see Horizon 3 having a huge role is rolling that out past federal government, rolling that out not just beyond defense into the entire public sector, civilian side of what the federal government does, but then even farther beyond that to state governments, local governments. So maybe talk a little bit about the work you guys are doing there. Maybe Snehal, we can start with you because I know you guys are focused on this in looking at adoption beyond the federal landscape and certainly beyond that DIB.
Yeah, for sure. So this what I'm worried about as a citizen is the cybersecurity capability of state local education. There's a few problems to go solve there. The first problem is a sheer shortage of talent. There just isn't enough cybersecurity talent in many of these states, and what little talent they have is used by the private sector, right? They go off and get a lot more money elsewhere. And then I think about states that are, and also certain states have more talent, like California, relative, like in terms of total numbers, versus other states in the country. But even then, it's not enough. The second part of this is funding. A lot of these states are underwater from a state budget standpoint. They don't have the funding to go after and improve that cybersecurity posture. And the question is, when the dust settles between the role of CISA and their collaboration with states and local governments, what does that budget landscape look like? And so I actually feel quite confident at the federal level because of what we see of interagency collaboration. I'm especially worried about state local because of talent and because of resources. What we've seen, say in California, is the role of the California National Guard becoming that cyber auditor to some degree across California state agencies. And I think that's a really interesting model because the California National Guard has a part of the job has the mandate of responding to these kinds of cyber incidents anyways. So this is a train like you fight. They're hardening environments. They've got to come in and secure as it is. So I think there's a really interesting model there to go build out on. But then the question is, how do we scale them up? How do we create that force multiplier? I don't know, Bailey, and what do you think? And Jen, what do you see as well at the state local education level?
I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I think the talent thing is something we're always thinking about, and we're always trying to invest in programs that will help with education at a very young age, internships to give people opportunities, expose them to not only cyber, but also cyber in our mission when they're young and try to get them that way. In terms of how we can specifically better support state and government, I think 2 things. I think first, working really closely with CISA, we try to share all the threat intelligence that we have so they can cascade that out. But then again, I think this is where the work between intelligence and industry is so key because again, those state and local entities are generally using the same services and components and technology products that we're using. And so if we can make those better, we help the whole ecosystem. And that's really been our focus for a while.
I think that's totally right. I think you put the private sector right there as a partner with the National Guard or your Cybersecurity Operations Center. You pointed it out. California does. They have it's called CalSIC. It's their Security and Incident Command, and it's a huge partnership between the National Guard, our Department of Technology, our CHP, our military departments. So it spans sort of the technology leadership. They talk about the private sector being a partner for that, and rightfully so. I think like some of the surveys on this have said that, cybersecurity investment is a little under 10% of your total spend on technology. And I think there is a huge recognition that that's not really enough. But what is enough, right? We're never going to zero value the threat that's coming in. And so it's a matter of how you do more with less resources. And that's why I think the private sector is such an important partner. You have tools and capabilities and talent and workforce that are in the private sector that can be working hand in hand with governments to really make them a part of the team without actually dealing with the issues, Snehal, that you're talking about, where it's like no one wants to work for your government. And if they're super skilled in cybersecurity, they're going to go get a job that pays them twice as much. But if those companies are a partner at the table with your security operations centers, I think that's where you sort of hit the sweet spot. We've seen this centralized approach sort of happening at a number of states. We had Nevada's state CIO on the podcast a couple months ago, and he chatted about legislation that was centralizing authority and operations of cybersecurity. Texas just passed a law that's going to do the same thing. It's very decentralized. And I think we're missing sort of the point of it when we're saying each department just do your own thing. Like, it doesn't work when it comes to something like this. And the information sharing alone makes an incredible case for sort of centralizing a lot of these efforts.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to pull the thread on what you were saying and make sure I clarify one of my own remarks is when we talk about working with industry to make products better, again, focused on SIG and insights, getting them out, focused on our decades in doing technology and cryptography and making sure we share that. But industry is awesome, right? There is so much talent out there. And one of the things that I've loved to see is how we're working better together to share our insights. But two, I've been at NSA for 16 years. I did leave briefly for 2 years, worked in industry and came back. And I'm seeing increasingly that happen across government and industry where people are coming in and they're saying, let me learn this side of it. And then they're leaving and saying, let me learn that. And I think that cross pollination is so cool because you're learning different skills, but B, you're learning how to trust each other. And when you need to work with industry or an industry partner, you can literally go, I can call so and so. And they know who I am, they know what I'm about. And so I think that's been a really cool thing that's just happened in our community writ large over the last couple of years that will hopefully help move the needle more in the future.
Let me sort of pull that thread a little more. When we talk about, AI and we talk about automation, government in particular gets a little nervous. Are you replacing us? So, like pen testing, for instance, Snehal, I've had conversations when it comes to this where they're like, this tool's really neat, but like we have a whole team of people that are doing this work. And you're telling me like I don't need them to do that anymore. In government, it gets really, really touchy, especially with unions and issues like that. So why don't you guys give me your perspectives on sort of that? Are we being replaced? And sort of how you view that
Yeah.
conversation.
I'll start. So there are you split the problem into two groups. The first are the set of companies that have nothing at all, right? They're the have-nots. They have no ability to assess themselves. In which case, they'll use Horizon 3 and Node Zero to hack themselves, to run those pen tests. And the bulk of our users in that scenario are IT admins and network engineers that just want to fix stuff that matter, right? That's the key. And there's a whole group there. There's another group that are the haves. They have the privilege of having in-house teams already, which is actually quite rare across industry. There's a certain level of maturity before you have that. In that case, most of those folks are already underwater. They have a massive backlog of things to assess. They can only assess small chunks of environments as a result. And for them, it's about a force multiplier. It's about letting that team of 10 fight like a team of 100 or team of 1,000. And you achieve that through what we do with Horizon 3 and Node Zero as the force multiplier. Because if you ask that team, hey, we need you to go pen test the entire tax bureau every single month. Please go do it. They will freak out. There
Yeah,
are
get
not
out of
enough
here. That's
people and not
impossible.
it's impossible. We have customers running pen tests with 100 to 200 to 300,000 IPs per test every single week. And these aren't cursory scans. These are very deep, comprehensive, thorough tests that are executed. And what that does is it allows the humans to focus on problems that'll put them on stage at DEF CON. The humans want to go work on really interesting stuff only humans can uniquely solve. The long tail of OT, ICS, SCADA systems, as an example, really hard for algorithms to go off and attack those environments because I would love to go buy a nuclear reactor as Horizon 3 so I can test against it. I don't have the funds to do that. And so most companies just don't have access to the cyber ranges required to build algorithmic attack in those types of settings, ICS, SCADA, OT, and whatever. So I actually see humans being pushed more into the long tail bespoke systems and services where they end up using their human experience. And then Node Zero and tools like us focusing on the massive attack surface that is your hybrid cloud infrastructure, the on prem pivoting to multiple cloud services pivoting to SaaS and on prem services, and so on. And so in those scenarios, it's a force multiplier, and that's the litmus test. go pen test the California Franchise Tax Bureau in its entirety every single month. And until you can do that, you just don't have enough resources.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've worked with some of these largest governments in the world, and a lot of the scenario is the former, where we go in and say to them, like, "What are you doing? What's your pen testing protocol?" And they're like, "Excuse what? Like, we don't do that. Are we getting audited? If we're gonna get audited, we'll get something and we'll do it." But it is a little terrifying, when it comes to it. And it's a resource problem. It's not that they have a team that's doing it. And you're right, it's the force multiplier that a lot of these tools, not just in pen testing, but across the board when it comes to AI and automation, that I think are really going to be a game changer for this kind of thing.
Yep, exactly right. I think the next part is um, we had a guy on our team, Noah King, who started off as a front end engineer. And just by being a front end developer, building Node Zero, he got excited about cybersecurity. And he started to really understand attacks and kill chains and the way Node Zero operated. So he actually became a really good hacker in the sense that he understood the fundamentals of a cyber attack. He went off and passed the OSCP, pen test ethical hacker exam on his first try, which is, if you read the OSCP boards on Reddit and elsewhere, like, it's a really tough exam. So the other thing that we see is the blue teams, the IT admins, network engineers that are now understanding Node Zero results to decide what to fix are becoming better cyber people. So there's this inherent training aspect to what's happening to our users as they understand the attacker's perspective. I'll tell you, I learned more about cybersecurity as the CEO of Horizon 3, understanding and studying what Node Zero did in the various ways it compromised organizations than in any class or course or book or job I've ever had previously. Because once you look at the anatomy of an attack and understand the fundamentals and the principles, you become a great cyber defender as a result. So I do like the fact that our users are becoming more marketable, more employable, better skilled because you're understanding the attacker's perspective.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I
we see
love,
that across the dip,
yeah,
across the defense
exactly.
industrial base as well.
And, back to Bailey's point of blurring those lines between private sector and public sector, the skills you're learning working with one are so easily transferable to the other. It just makes a ton of sense. All right. Well, as I sort of wrap this up, is there anything I want to know what you guys are super excited about? Like, what's on the horizon, pun intended, to Horizon 3? What's on the horizon for you that you're like, I can't wait for X to happen? Bailey, we'll sort of start with you.
Okay, I'll just give a very candid answer. We didn't prep for this.
I
One
know.
of the things one of the things I've been excited about is we have, within our collaboration center, done a really, really, really good job at marrying our data from the cybersecurity support that we provide small businesses to the data, the business intelligence data. And so it's made it very easy to characterize risk and return on investment across any given supply chain. And so there's nothing better than talking to a PEO or a 2-star, 3-star, anyone across the military and saying, "We're working within your supply chain to assess and reduce the risk, and here's the quantifiable impact of that." And these people, I mean, we're in the Department of Defense. It's a serious business. You hear bad news every day. And so for me, it's exciting to be able to say, "Here's good news. We're able to flag this vulnerability under active exploitation for critical members of your supply chain. And within 2 days, 93% of them patch that vulnerability prior to any kind of exploitation." And when you say that, people are like, "Oh my gosh, like you're bringing me good news? You're not telling me that, my supply chain is compromised and I have to start over and we have to do a assessment." And so those are the types of things that I get really excited about, seeing the impact every day, but then also being able to share that impact, with others is just a good feeling.
Oh my gosh, Bailey, that is so incredibly geeky, and I love it so much because, like, I'm with you that that kind of stuff gets me excited too. And Yeah, I mean, talk about like you never love getting a call from your CISO or your cybersecurity team. It's like always the last call you want to get. So yeah, you're right. To have that call be good news, like
Well,
congrats.
and the final thing I'll say is we are so lucky to be, like, left of boom. We're in the left of boom space. We're working before the bad thing happens, and, that's just the best job you'll ever have. So, um, I'll turn it over to you, Snehal. Sorry I got passionate, but you asked a good
No,
question.
I love it.
it's amazing. Yeah, actually, just building on Bailey's comment, I'll talk about what's exciting. What I really love about the NSA Triple C's philosophy is carrot versus stick. I think this is incredibly important. When I was a CIO in financial services, it was all about stick. It was always about compliance beating you up, and that's why you had to go do something. And rarely were there incentives to do the right thing unless the personality of the leader cared about doing it. Right. So I've always been a cybersecurity passionate person. And so we just wanted to be secure by design because I forced it on my teams. But there was no carrot. It was only out of fear of the stick of getting beat up if we blew a compliance report. So I do love the philosophy of the Triple C as focus more on the carrot and incentivizing you to get better because you supplier, you DIB, you're working on something important and you don't want to be the reason why the designs of a nuclear submarine get burned. Here's how we're going to help you get better. I just love that carrot philosophy that you always need the stick, right? The stick sets the bar and the carrot raises the bar. And I love that kind of dynamic of what I see with the Triple C. That's what gravitates me towards that organization. But what gets me excited, so one of the coolest features we launched was a capability called tripwires. Think of it as while breaking into your house, we'll install ring cameras along the way. So if a real bad guy shows up, you're going to get this early warning network. And then the next part is, hey, while breaking into your house, we saw that the window lock was broken. Let me just fix that window lock for you right there in the moment. And while I'm fixing that window lock, let me look for scuffs to see if a bad guy has already broken, lifted this windowsill and enter. Are there footprints? Are there scuffs on the windowsill and so on? So what you start to see is the role of pen testing as a map and compass for defensive workflows and actions. The first of which is turning on these tripwires or these honey tokens or early warning sensors across every single company that uses Horizon 3. And by doing so, we'll have the largest early warning network in the world for private sector, at least, because we'll have fake AWS credentials, fake Azure tokens, fake SQL dump files, and other artifacts laid out across every single organization that is running Node Zero pen test. So it's a massive data set that once again helps public-private partnership. It helps our own customers and so on and so forth. And then the extension of that is using pen test results to actually drive incident response workflows, to drive threat hunting workflows, and to accelerate automated remediation. That to me is what gets excited because it's all about find, fix, verify, and accelerating that find, fix, verify cycle to be as fast as possible.
I love it. An equally geeky answer, but I'm also a geek and plays right into our audience for these kind of things. So I absolutely love it. Well, I just want to say thank you both for your time today, for the work you're doing from the public sector side and from the private sector as a partner to public sector side. Super admirable. Can't wait to see where this goes. And we'll be here all along the way. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.